And I think the quest for originality is an interesting one in itself. I think that, that the pursuit to do something original was always my pursuit when I was a child. I really realized became obsessed with this idea that I could create something or do something in this world that nobody else had done prior. And the chosen profession for me was design. And when design started, really, which is from the Industrial Revolution, which is about 165 years ago, it was really a new profession in a way. And it was really a profession where we took the mechanizations of the 20th century, machinery, production technologies, and we really had to start shaping objects and products that were accessible to a large audience, that were really accessible to everybody. That's really what mass production was. So really design, in a sense, came out of this notion of industry, hence my title. What I had studied was industrial design, which is design for industry. And I love this idea that we would eventually live in this kind of automated world, where the world would kind of shrink, be highly communicative, and that a lot of our, let's say, banal chores of day to day would be taken care of by the objects and things around us. And that world is here today, really. It's changed a lot. The landscape has changed a lot. And this new profession of industrial design that grew out of the Industrial Revolution was really a person who had a pulse, a kind of sensitivity to, let's say, human and social experience. That almost felt like they knew the needs and understood the desires of the consumer. And over here we had a manufacturer who was good at doing what they do, of producing product, or producing the quality that we would actually desire. So the designer, industrial designer, really is this liaison, and this is what I've concluded in my profession. I'm sort of the person in a way that's in between industry and you as a consumer. And as in the last 30 years, as products have now been produced more, let's say, robotically, or through issues of using CAD, of using digital technologies, and using 3D softwares, we're starting to shape better and better and better products. So really, in the last 30 years, the landscape has changed drastically. So I always had this kind of notion, this sensitivity about trying to make our objects of everyday life, sometimes banal objects, a chair, a watch, a cart that holds a projector, a microphone, all these physical things which are of all interest to me, of great interest to me, to try to kind of elevate their experience. And not only elevate their experience, but make the experience more pleasurable. Even when I design a product today, I'm not just thinking about a physical object, and I'm not just thinking about the way something, let's say, looks or appears, but I'm thinking about the way something functions. You know, we solve a chair. We've solved a comfortable chair. There's probably several million chairs that have been designed. In fact, if any of you want to become a designer and you're going to be interested in the idea of designing a chair, you have quite a challenge. And I'm a little shocked that I can actually sit in a chair that's uncomfortable. In other words, I think as a designer, what you need to constantly do is improve upon what already exists, not regress. Then there's a kind of creative or artistic side for me for design. My father was a painter, and so I was brought up in quite a creative context. And so I was torn between being an artist, being an architect, being a designer. So in my design world, I don't only create physical objects that are mass-produced, and some of them, you know, in the sense of millions in a year, but I also make many things that are maybe a one-off object, sculpture, painting, and I try to do a real plethora of work. I get pleasure out of this notion that I have so little room to move, and yet somehow I have to still create something new. I have probably, for the last 18 years, designed in 3D. All my staff, all our computers, all our software, all our technologies, all 3D. Now, when you design in 3D, what kind of world are we going to shape? If 2D designing gave us this three-dimensional world, 3D will give us fourth-dimensional world. Now, if I'm a designer and I just go back and look at those styles, what am I doing? I'm not designing, I'm styling. For me to design, I need to work with the contemporary criteria that I have at this moment in time. And my goal is in the physical world is to almost speak about the digital age. I don't work in the digital realm, so I work in the physical realm. So can I get the physical world to catch up to the digital age? Because for me, the digital age is exponentially changing our world, and the physical world is lagging behind.
Anyway, so I'm sitting on the chair, and it broke halfway through dinner while I was sitting on it, and I fell on my ass, I remember. And I went home that night, and I decided, you know what, I need to make a decent plastic chair. And my goal, in a way, I generated this for myself, was to see if I could replace that chair that was on the market. And I decided that I got to make a chair that's 100% recyclable, something that's much more structural, something that's much more comfortable, and something that's much more attractive to me. So I decided I'll just do a chair on my own. So I started making lots of sketches, ideas, developing them, made a model. First model was out of kind of scrap cardboard. I wish I had images to show you this. I replaced the legs with an alloy, a thin metal tube. And the first thought I had is to make the chair stacking. So there's a lot of factors that go way beyond thinking about just the beauty of an object or the form of an object. So I started thinking about how tight I can get them to stack. And as I was making the chair, the first ones, this was solid plastic. And I was trying to make an arm that was quite wide and comfortable. And I did something that I thought needed improvement on the old chair, which was that the old chair was quite upright. It's almost sat like a dining chair, the plastic armchair. So I decided to push the back further back. And I noticed that when you sit in a chair that's very upright and you sit forward, you end up all the spaces not being contacted by your body. It's a waste. So if you recline the seat a little bit more, the back a little bit more, you sit more comfortably, but you get to stay in a more casual position. So that's what I did with the chair. So this chair probably is 3 or 4 degrees more than almost any, let's say, polymer or plastic chair on the market. Start working on it. When we did the analysis of the chair and the amount of plastic that was going to be here and figured out the pricing of it, the chair became too expensive. So I thought, what am I going to do? So I decided to cut holes out of the chair to reduce the amount of plastic. I decided to take out plastic here, obviously, because I made the legs skinnier at the back so they could stack through the hole. I took the plastic out here because you don't really sit on an arm, so it's not like I needed real structure there. I took plastic out here because this was great, because then it provided like a handle. But the good thing is with all the holes, it provided handles everywhere, so I could pick up the chair almost anywhere, which was kind of advantageous compared to a lot of plastic chairs on the market also. So as I was going through, really, you could argue, just very functional criteria, and really cost, it was about cost, trying to make an inexpensive chair, I was coming up in a way with a new form. If I sat down to come up with O chair today, I would have probably never drawn this form. So more or less the form grew out of all the criteria that I had to deal with, and to try to get it at a cost-effective price. The other thing is, we made this in virgin polypropylene, in recycled polypropylene. Recycled polypropylene was cheaper than virgin polypropylene, and polypropylene you can recycle forever. And even more so when you learn about different plastics, polypropylene, when they burn it, gives off water or vapor. If you burn off, for example, PVC, it gives off chloride, which is toxic. So polypropylene is, you could argue, a very relatively safe plastic, harmless plastic. And the nice thing about plastic is you can inject any color you want. 1.6 million colors you could do, just like a bubble jet printer. So Umbra every year does 3, 4, or 5 colors to refresh it. And that's how this chair ended up being developed. And the beauty is then, when it goes to recycling, this is ground up and put back in a hopper, and you can injection mold again. And the metal legs are ground up, melted, and produced into tubing again. If I did this with every project, I would have lots of successful projects. What I realized is that I was pushing myself all the way with every little bit of criteria. I kept making the chair one step better, within the given time frame of the producing of the product. Maybe if you gave yourself 10 years, you could make an immaculate chair, but nobody has 10 years. When we design today, we're not really designing in a vacuum. And what I mean by that is you could go and take 10 different chairs and take parts from them or look at them. So there are many chairs on the market that just had metal legs. So you can get a pretty good, you can work off other people's work, basically. You know, and you should, because so much is being done. You shouldn't really work naively. So I open up Sketchpad or my iPad, and I focus on that product, and I just draw and think about that typology. And as I'm drawing, I'm at a point now where I can draw and draw a lot of conclusions quite quickly, just out of experience. But when I'm drawing, I'm not just thinking about the form, I'm thinking about the use, I'm thinking about the material, I'm thinking about the technology, I'm thinking about how I'm going to make it, all those simultaneously as I sketch. Once with those sketches, I'll send them to my office. I have more or less 6 people in product design and 6 in architecture. They will start, my head product guy will generally start, and will immediately put everything into 3D. Right away, as fast as possible. We start doing everything on computer in 3D. As soon as we have a bunch, and I come into the office, I sit down, I look at the computer with them, and we start changing things and talking about things, or we quickly like an idea, we make a rapid prototype model, we pull out the model, we try the model, talk about it, make sure it works. This is for a product. Make sure it works, make sure it feels good, and generally for every job around the world, I'm probably doing about 10, 15, 20 concepts for whatever that product is.